period, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda. So Brian and Kate, I think you have um, your opportunity with Zoom now to take over. So welcome.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. And good afternoon to all of you. Some of your faces I know, and others I'm meeting for the first time today. And thank you for the introduction. Kate and I, when we were chatting with Lindy and Bob prior to this meeting and thinking about, what would be relevant. Your group is eclectic and across a number of different sectors. And so I thought we'd just, give you a very short presentation of kind of, what we've been up to lately, and then leave time for more of a Q&A and a discussion in respects to, opportunities to partner with higher education. So with that said, click and move on. So we've already done the introductions, but just once again, online with me today is Dr. Kate White, who is our Director of Continuing Education, and I am Brian Cook, Associate Vice President of University Extension. It's a little bit of what we'll discuss today, and continuing education is a little bit different throughout the nation, but in California, the CSUs typically offer most of the programs that we offer are typically post-baccalaureate, but we do offer some pre-baccalaureate, if you will, or some skills-based non-credit programs that are that we'll get into in a little bit, as well as we partner with our academic colleges to do things like degree completion and graduate certificates and graduate degrees. We have a downtown Oakland center that pre-pandemic had been pretty busy, and one of our prime locations was right on top of the 12th Street BART station. We also have a branch campus out in Concord that we offer a number of our certificate and degree programs at, as well as our main campus in the Hayward. But fortunately for us, we have in extended ed and in continuing education, the majority of our programs are online and hybrid. So we were ready for this pandemic, and we've actually been growing our online offerings since March. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to Kate.
Thank you, Brian. So something that continuing education across the CSU system is very proud of, that we are really involved with connecting community members wherever they may be in their education cycle and lifelong learning with that next piece that they need. And when COVID-19 hit, our colleagues across the state and then specifically at our chancellor's office really wanted to think about how can we, as continuing education units throughout the state of California, really do what we do best and give back to our community. So we had a system-wide, statewide initiative called Courses for Causes, where we offered free introductory courses and in some cases whole certificate programs for free. Initially it was for first responders, but then it was expanded to just anybody who needed access. We had a lot of people, as Bob said at the start, that with unemployment rampant. So a lot of people looking to pivot and maybe build on skills they already have or pick up some new skills to start a new career. So very proud that at Cal State East Bay, we offered 6 free courses and we had just under 500 enrolled students, and statewide over 6,000 students took part in these free courses. And it is something that our chancellor's office is trying to see. I'm not sure how sustainable it is to be offering everything for free, but the chancellor's office is very interested in making sure that we continue to give back to our community and offering something through this Courses for Causes on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. And one of the interesting things to point out about this initiative is that it was the 500 enrollments and we had for our 6 courses, and the 75 courses that were offered were all across various sectors. Some of them were professional development and sort of soft skills, and others were introductory courses like ours that lead into a certificate. So with that said, it's difficult to really have a natural comparison, but one of the things that I noticed is that of the 6,000 students served, I think about 1,500 of them actually completed their course. And while you think, well, you might look at that and say, wow, that's 25% completion rate. As you compare it to national MOOC standards, which is those massive open online courses, you may have heard of Coursera and edX, who offer this big, huge scaled marketed online professional development courses throughout the nation. Their completion rates are typically between 3 and 5%. So we were really excited to see that. Obviously, when you offer something for free, there's no harm, no foul. But we were really encouraged by the fact that we had so many students complete our program, and hoping that they continue on in our certificates. Kate?
Sure. So at Cal State East Bay, we run, as Brian said, our certificate programs really run the gamut in subject matter. So we have both academic and professional development certificate programs. So the academic programs would be ones that carry academic units. And typically they carry the units because of some outside accrediting or licensing body. So for example, our paralegal studies program is approved by the American Bar Association, and the continuing education for teachers, obviously those individuals need the units. They can apply those for salary increases. And I wanted to highlight the recreation therapy program. That was a program that when our faculty realized that oftentimes people may study something as an undergraduate and then get out into the workforce and find themselves in a completely different field. And recreation therapy, there are a lot of jobs available, and there's 2 ways to obtain licensure, and one of them is to get a bachelor's degree in that subject. But another way is to accumulate on-the-job experience in addition to a smaller amount of subject-specific units. So there were people working in rec therapy jobs who weren't able to obtain that next level of career, or people who wanted to shift into a rec therapy job and they didn't need a bachelor's degree. They maybe already have a bachelor's degree, but they needed a certain set of units. So we were able to make use of pre-existing courses that are for degree-seeking students and allow community members and professionals to enroll in those courses without having to apply to the university at large, using something we call Open University. And it's really enriched. So these are community members and professionals who then are joining undergraduates in the same class. These are all online classes. And it's really enriched both the degree program, because now we have undergrad students who are studying next to and working on projects with people who have work experience, and as well as expanded the job opportunities for people who were already maybe working in the industry but weren't eligible for licensure and now are.
Thanks, Kate. And that's an example of repackaging our courses in smaller chunks to make them a little bit more accessible for someone who's not quite ready, maybe to finish a degree or pursue a new career, pursue an entirely new degree or an additional degree. That's a way for individuals to come in and take a few courses, earn a certificate that's has a career attached to it. This slide is just another example of a number of programs that we offer. We don't need to get into the details of them. Happy to take questions about any of these later on the call today, or even after that. But I do want to point out that not all of these programs were online back in March, but because of our phenomenal online campus team and our dedicated instructors, we're able to get all these up online, and currently all of our programs and continuing ed are offered online, 100% online, and some of them may remain online post-pandemic. And then Kate?
Yeah, another example of programs where, so for the rec therapy program that I spoke of earlier, that was our faculty saying, we hear from employers that they have people who are great at their jobs and just aren't eligible for kind of that next level because they don't have units, and how can we fix this problem, and can Cal State help? And so this is this infant and early childhood mental health, it's a mouthful, but a certificate program is another example that there was a workforce development committee for early childhood. And so it was people from Alameda County Behavioral Health and First Five, Children's Hospital, all of these working professionals sat on this committee together, and they were kind of commiserating that when they onboard highly qualified individuals who have their masters of social work and or in counseling, they're hiring these people who have gone through stellar programs, but they have no expertise in early childhood and the things that you look for when you're doing in-house visits for social work, the way that developmental delays or problems and situations of abuse or neglect may present themselves in an infant is very different than how it would present in a 13-year-old, right? And so all of these various agencies were noticing that this was just something that people had to learn on the job, and there was such a delay that they were hoping, the ultimate goal was to incorporate this type of expertise into a master's program. But in the meantime, what they wanted to be able to do was educate individuals who are currently serving as social workers and counselors in Alameda County and in the region, in specifically infant and early childhood mental health. So they approached Cal State East Bay, and specifically they wanted to work with East Bay because they're interested in making sure that we're training people who are of our community, from our community, and will serve our community, and people who reflect our community. And East Bay is such a diverse campus that they really wanted to work with us. We have a great social work department as well. So they were interested in teaming up with us, and we started this certificate program, and it's a postgraduate certificate program. And the County of Alameda was actually able to, through some public dollars that they had, they completely fully subsidized the first cohort of students that went through the program. And actually I had a meeting with the task force this morning, and we're getting ready. We're recruiting for the second cohort right now. And it's been an amazing relationship in really giving back to the community and making sure that the people that are serving the residents, specifically right now I'm working with Alameda County, but Contra Costa County has been interested as well. And in making sure that the people that are serving the families in our community are well-rounded, and the program also has a social justice lens to it, which we love at Cal State East Bay. And it was completely kind of homegrown by a workforce development committee. So it's been an amazing program.
So that's one of many types of partnerships that we'll entertain and we are entertaining. And so I just wanted to give you an example of some of the ways that we're working with regional partners and, and essentially dovetail into our discussion this afternoon. And if you notice that last bullet point, I put next generational programming. And I want to be clear that that is the same. There should be a question mark next to that as well. We're not here letting you know that we know what that next generational programming is, but we're open to have that conversation. We're looking forward to discussions about alternative credentials and badging and chunking up learning experiences for our prospective students in the region. That wonderful initiative that Kate was a part of in the Courses for Causes is something that we look at as, of course, it's not sustainable from a self-support perspective to offer free courses, but why not offer courses that, maybe the first course is free, you chalk that up as a marketing cost, and then you build in the rest of the costs associated with the follow-up courses. I think there's a number of different ways that we can look at how we work with the community, and so with that said, I would just say one thing that all of you should take away today is this person's name and email, Kate White, who obviously is my partner here. And she's really the point of contact for any new programs, any new opportunities that make sense for the region. Of course, you can reach out to me as well, but she's our point person. That said, I think I'll stop sharing and turn back to the group. Lindy, I don't know if there's questions in the chat or whatnot, but let me know what you'd like. How'd you like to proceed?
So we do have two people who wanted to kind of just chime in. So I'm going to give them the opportunity to do that. And then I have a question, and I imagine we may come up with some questions as we continue to have this discussion. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But it looks like Barbara and Bob both wanted to chime in. So Barbara, why don't we start with you?
Okay. So Kate White, I'm Barbara Hockett. You and I spoke actually a year ago this month. And the reason we spoke is because I was serving on this task force, and it had been mentioned that we have an incredible need for some behavioral health expertise in this county. And I had worked with a nice lady named Kelly Ransom, who also works with Pete at We Care. And I loved your program, and I tried to market it through behavioral health in Contra Costa County. And the biggest stumbling block after about 17 emails and about 14 phone calls was finance. And it ended up that Title IX funding wasn't in Contra Costa County, and we didn't have a waiver. So there was no way to find the dollars to help support this program. My thoughts about this program was to not only augment the expertise of people working in the industry, but also to try and educate a workforce who has like health education courses and or a certificate or degree from Cal State who would like to transition into behavioral health, because I think we could educate a workforce of people with bachelor's degrees and have them at a level of expertise where they could be utilized in clinics. So nice to see you, Kate.
You as well. I remember your enthusiasm last year. So it was infectious, but unfortunately, I guess not quite infectious enough for to get over the lack of funding. But
that's right. But it's an incredible idea, and Cal State offers awesome programs. And I have to tell you, I'm biased because I teach for Cal State.
We accept your bias. And And I just wanted to add to that, Barbara, thank you for your commitment. And, why don't we just, let's try looking for funds again. There's new funds out there. There's CARES money coming out. Let's continue to keep knocking on doors. Maybe we'll find some. I'm willing to do some in kind. So.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, because, I'm not involved in, or at least not very deeply in county funding, and especially in behavioral health. And so, you end up just having a roadblock and everything just stops because of that. And so if anybody has deep pockets or knows where those are, that would be very beneficial.
Thank you, Barbara.
Mhm.
Bob Redlow, you also wanted to chime in.
Okay, thanks. And thanks so much, Lindy, and leaders from the East Bay Leadership Council for having this session. I think it is so important, and especially during this time of COVID. What I find really interesting is the opportunities that we now have, particularly, my expertise is mostly in healthcare. So, the opportunities we have in healthcare. I heard this morning, I was on another call for the Future of Health Commission, and a doctor from Kaiser was on, and he talked about people getting prescriptions during COVID. Before COVID, people used to get mail order prescriptions at about 10% of their membership, and now it's 55%. And he was talking about the opportunities for jobs and workforce development. And so when we talk about certificate programs, both for entry-level career pathways, but also for people who also have degrees, I think we have a lot of opportunity to, in these new positions and these new demands in the way we deliver healthcare. We also had, just a month or two ago, the governor signed the peer-to-peer program to allow for funding in mental health as we talk about behavioral health. So we need certificate programs for peers. That would be really, really important. These are new opportunities for us. Kaiser also talked about this morning the increased need for IT because of the way we deliver healthcare and telehealth, and more people are getting their healthcare through telehealth and their appointments. The feeling from folks, from the providers, is that's not going to change. Even when COVID goes away, the amount of telehealth appointments will be that much more increased because of what we've experienced now. So again, we need lots of help in IT. We need lots of help in ancillary jobs. I think these are all opportunities for certificate programs. And I think Cal East Bay could really be a key to helping those jobs. So I really want to just, throw my 2 cents in about, although kind of a terrible time to be living because of COVID, also a good time for opportunity and jobs for people in our community who could use the expertise at Cal State East Bay to help them move along and get real positions, particularly in healthcare.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, I just want to echo, as part of the healthcare task force, which is now a part of this opportunity task force, we did work on the bill that Bob just mentioned and sent in a lot of support for that SB 803. And we're excited to see that there is this movement forward in supporting peer support specialist pilot certificating, especially in hopes that it becomes something that Medi-Cal can fund. And so if there is interest there, Brian and Kate, we'd be happy to continue to be a partner in thinking about that, especially knowing that you've already looked at things like this early childhood mental health program. I'm sure some of the expertise there would be certainly carried over to possibly a peer support specialist program. So does anyone else have any questions or want to chime in? If not, I'm gonna ask a question myself, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anyone. Do a quick review of the room. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand. Kate and Brian, I was curious, what are you guys encountering in regards to some of your certificate programs where there's great value in the certificate itself, let's say like the paralegal program, because it might allow someone to move into a pretty high skilled, high paying job, but a lot of employers are now requiring a bachelor's degree in lieu of that certificate. Have you seen a lot of that? And if so, kind of what has the response been from educational institutions?
I know we find the majority of our paralegal students actually are what what I would refer to as reverse transfer students, in that they have completed a bachelor's degree already, and then they're coming back to us for a career certificate program, which may be kind of out of order of how we might envision a student doing it. So the majority of our paralegal students do already have a bachelor's degree.
Okay.
But with something like the paralegal program, because our program is so specific in training, it's not an associate's degree in in sort of management or something where you may have the requisite skills and project management and detail orientation to be good as a paralegal. We're actually teaching you very much the tangible skills of law office management and the computer apps that you would use as a paralegal. And that's all very, our students graduate with a portfolio of really a way to demonstrate the skills that they've earned. So, and we have, an internship is part of the program. And we have kind of staff members in place who liaison with employers. So we kind of do a lot of the networking to be able to connect our students with the employers. And we also offer resume writing assistance and kind of career guidance to really put our students with their best foot forward when they exit, so that they know if you don't have a bachelor's degree, here's what you should kind of lead with. And we find, when we do our exit surveys for our students, we survey them 6 months after they've finished the program so that we can ask about their employment. And it's typically over 70% of them are working in the legal field.
Okay, thanks, Kate. I noticed Brian just put in the chat, other than at Cal Poly, is there any interest in preparing the workforce to support the technology in buildings, including IT, but also other devices such as air quality, comfort, safety, security, etc.? Is that something has come to your attention, or that you know of any interest from Cal Cities Bay in exploring?
So the question is there interest in workforce training for jobs that support this IT? Is that what, if I understanding, not actually implementing these types of this type of IT in the infrastructure?
No, it's more, it's more the long-term maintenance. So we have, it's a huge talent shortage. So you have two different aspects of it. You have the installation of these systems, which is largely supported by the unions and more of that workforce. But then there's a technical workforce that's more like IT support that is required to manage these networks ongoing, because now, as buildings become more dependent on the integration of all of these different systems within a building and maintaining the comfort and health and safety of a building and the inhabitants of those buildings, we need a workforce that is skilled at doing that. And there is no current education system in place in North America that does that.
Other than Cal Poly?
Cal Poly does it through their mechanical engineering program, but it's not targeted necessarily at supporting and maintaining these systems. I would say it's more of a full engineering degree, where I think this could be more of a certificate program. Great.
I'm interested. If you could follow up with us afterwards with some of the skills areas that you're looking at, we'd be interested. And what we could do is, if we don't think that it's there's enough demand within our current region to get a program off the ground, it sounds like there would be, but from what you've said, we could always partner with San Jose State, San Francisco State, and others, and develop maybe an online program together, so we don't let cost be the prohibitive factor as to why we wouldn't launch them.
Yeah, no, I think online would be a very good medium for this. It just needs structure, and it needs a place for people to go, because right now there's just not a consistent place for people to go to get that kind of education.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I noticed that Ryan Buckley had raised his hand. Ryan, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, thank you. I had a similar question about drone tech and autonomous vehicle like maintenance and development.
I know our colleagues at Brian, does it sound that I think it was Chico, had a drone certificate program. So I think we're all, I mean, basically we're always interested if there's jobs and there's a skills gap. You know, I think the most important thing that we want to make sure is that our students have a place to land when they exit, and that we're working in line with employers and fulfilling a need. So definitely if, you know, if you have any information on that, you know, I'd love to learn more.
Here's the program that Kate was referring to.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know LMC and DVC both had drone certificates as well. They're like going towards the FAA license.
Kate, just kind of to follow up on that, out of curiosity, is the CSU system itself exploring a way for students to be able to search or have an understanding of what certificates might be available to them online, knowing that now they might not need to go in person for some of this, so that instead of just seeing what might be available at Cal State East Bay, do they have the ability to kind of search what might be available at all CSUs?
That's a really interesting question. I know you can do that for degrees, but Brian, I don't believe that our certificates are, do you know if the certificates are included in what Cal State Online would show you? And that's something that I will definitely bring up at our next system-wide meeting as a fabulous idea. As you say, I mean, we have system-wide meetings where Brian and I and our colleagues from the other 22 other campuses get together and talk, and we're all very much interested in and intrigued by opportunities to collaborate on things, especially when there's an opportunity to maybe have a Southern California and a Northern California kind of hub for something. But as you say, when it's online right now, there's really no need for us all to be reinventing the wheel. And we can, you know, I'd rather refer a student to an existing program that's been vetted and has stellar faculty than tell somebody to wait a year while I launch a new program. So, and Brian is showing us, I can't see that, it's too tiny, but so
Yeah.
Cal State Online, is that just degree programs?
They also have those certificate programs as well.
Okay, great. So we did have a question in the chat that came actually from one of the co-chairs of our infrastructure task force. So thank you for joining us, Chadi. He is part of our infrastructure task force, but via our transportation side of the shop. And he was asking if there were any certificates that address labor skill needs for innovation in transportation, or if that's something you guys already have on the horizon. I think he's referring to like autonomous vehicles, tolling, and some of the innovations and technologies that are going to be a huge part of those as we start to shift that way in transportation.
I can tell you that I'm not currently working on any of those, but again, you know, am open to all ideas. Yeah, I think it's exciting.
Lindy, I can chime in on something that might be helpful there. When Brian was showing, this is Bob Lynch, by the way, when Brian was showing the page that showed the certificates, one of them was AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. So Chadi, at Cal Poly, I do know they have what they call a DX Hub, which is a collaboration between Cal Poly and Amazon Web Services. And they have the ability to do challenges where if you have a problem you want to solve, they can solve it through their program, in which students through internships are solving those kinds of issues. So I'll get your email address from Lindy, and I'll send you some more detail. But Kate and Brian are part of a network of similar folks that offer continuing education programs throughout the system. And collaboration amongst that group is impressive. So those of you that had questions about whether something's available, I'm certain if there's a collaborative opportunity, they'll make it happen. I did have a question regarding the project management. Is that a certificate that's industry approved so that it's a PMP essentially, where you have a subject matter expert, not a member of the faculty necessarily, offering that program that's recognized by the industry?
We were PMP approved, and at one point we let that lapsed, and we're looking at getting, so our hours do count towards the hours that you need to sit for the exam, but that we're not currently a PMP approved program, but we are reapplying.
Great. But you also have FullStack Academy for technical elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain so people understand that, you know, you don't need a 4-year degree to get some adoption of that program?
For our boot camps?
For the boot camp, yeah.
Yeah, so we're very excited launching this coming 2021. We're partnering with FullStack Academy to offer a coding boot camp and a cybersecurity boot camp. And I'm most excited about cybersecurity. Every time I turn on the news, there's something going on there. So, and yeah, these are industries, you know, to Lindy's earlier point of, you know, if somebody's qualified but they don't have a bachelor's degree, you know, there are some industries where really that that bachelor's degree credential is still kind of a gatekeeper, but the tech industry is not one of those. And so a completion of a boot camp from somebody like FullStack, who is, you know, kind of a known player in the field, speaks volumes. And graduates of this, you know, short-term kind of high intensity, you know, boot camp style program can finish and be employed in, you know, kind of a lot of times they're employed before they finish. So we're really excited to be launching that.
Lindy, can I jump in for a minute?
Thank you. Yeah, sure, Chadi.
On the cybersecurity thing, so I've looked really hard into the cybersecurity opportunities and what's available, and a lot of the programs, especially more of the expensive ones, they do require you to have a minimum level of knowledge about electrical communication, etc., before you can jump in and take a cybersecurity certificate or degree. The challenge is that there is so much need in that space, and not all of us are electrical engineers and communication engineers or communication specialists. So I'm not sure if there's a way we can structure a certificate program, or if this new program that they're going to do is structured to allow people who are not electrical engineers or communication engineers to take that certificate in that course.
Right, that's a really good point. I think because of the kind of fast-paced style of the boot camps, it does really kind of require you to have a certain amount of skills. And there are free, one of the reasons that Brian and I were excited to work with FullStack is that they have, they'll offer free intro courses, so you can try it out. We certainly don't want somebody to enroll in a high price tag boot camp style program only to find out that it's not for them. So FullStack offers these free, 2-week intro courses, and you can see if you have the ability or kind of that, because there are, I'm with you, Chadi, I don't have that expertise, but I have a 7-year-old who probably has more expertise than I do. And so there's a lot of people who just through their own kind of hobbies or what have you. And again, it doesn't have to be tied to a degree. So I really love that it's not an industry that is requiring that kind of credential. but you have to be able to show that you do have these specific tangible skills. So.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. So we are getting close to our time here. However, I do want to mention that Roy put a question in the chat related to whether students have access to modules covering general business management training, given that they're entering more of a gig and contract service economy, which I think is a great question. If possible, perhaps you could answer that in the chat or just give us kind of a quick yes or no, or maybe it's something we could expand on at a further or at a future meeting, because I think that that's a great question, but there might be more to look at there. And then I'm just going to say thank you so much for being here, and we might have to wrap this part of our meeting up.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate the opportunity. And if you think of anything after the fact, please reach out to Kate or I, and see our colleagues Satinders on the call. Happy to help and happy to partner. And you had some great ideas, and we'll definitely be following up, and hopefully you'll see new programs sooner than later coming out of our shop.
So Brian, if you wouldn't mind hanging on for you and Kate for a few minutes, we are going to discuss ideas for upcoming meetings this quarter. And
Sure.
so there may be some relevancy to the feedback that we get from the group that might be pertaining to what you guys provide. So if you wouldn't mind hanging on.
Mindy said we had to be out here at 1:45 sharp, and she was, I'm happy to stay on.
Yeah, she gets firm, doesn't she? So
Bob, can I just really quick, can I ask Kate and Brian if you wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat as well, just so people can reach out to you. Sorry, Bob.
no problem. Perfect. So this is the audience participation part of the program, where we'd love to get your feedback. This is our first attempt at bringing something to you that's relevant to our work at East Bay Leadership. And so are there some topics or subjects that you'd like to see in the not too distant future related to talent, education, economic development, or healthcare? I know that there's been a lot of interest on the healthcare side, so I'll open it up and let you folks have at it. You are on mute, everybody. Okay, well, we'll take some feedback from you along the way, and there may be some information in the chat later.
It looks like Ken might have had a thought.
Ken.
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Ken Mintz here. This is kind of off the wall, and it gets back to some of the conversation with Cal State East Bay. You know, we have a lot of educational programs these days that, you know, have switched to a remote environment right down through, public K-12 schools right now. But what we're also seeing is movement towards more remote work environment as well. And it'd be interesting to see if there's any work being done in terms of maybe soft skills training for people to be prepared to work in what may be an extended remote work environment, particularly for new employees who wouldn't have the opportunity to learn office skill type things in an office environment because now they're working mainly remote. And I'm just, like I say, kind of off the wall. There may be a whole new sector of soft skill training to move to that kind of cottage environment for people.
Great input.
I agree. And just for those of you who may not join us regularly, Ken Mintz is also the chair of the East Bay Leadership Council this year. So thanks for joining us, Ken. And Trudy added to that. She said that perhaps managing remote teams could be part of that training as well for those that are now managing their team from a totally remote location. I think that's a great suggestion. Does anyone else have some thoughts about things we could consider for future meetings?
Hey, Lynn, it's Brian Dean. Question, we obviously there's a massive opportunity for retraining and a shifting of skill set, but I'd love to perhaps get some deeper input from the Cal State East Bay team in terms of recent college graduates, right, or people or students who are on the verge of graduating here in this school year. As far as how can the private sector reach those folks, reach that community, that population. I'm with JP Morgan Chase, and my biggest complaint for us internally is, we always reach out to Cal or Stanford, right? And Cal State East Bay, unfortunately, does get forgotten about. So how can we, the private sector, be more thoughtful and be a bit more proactive in terms of the opportunities we're finding and the talent we know exists, but for lack of the brand name, I guess, for lack of a brand name as visible given the others in the market or in the local geography, that they may be forgotten about, which is unfortunate, obviously, but how can we be that much more proactive?
I really like that idea, Brian. I think it'd be great to invite, particularly recruiters and HRs and people that are involved in that world every day and think about how we get somewhat innovative and how we approach some of that.
For our East Bay team, are there career services provided on campus for students where businesses can link up? Is that something that's provided there?
Yes, of course. Not only do we have kind of a career services department that focuses on students who kind of their first job or helping them with resume building and preparing for interviews and looking for that first job or internship or apprenticeship. We also have career services that are integrated at the college level to help, and we have job fairs and all the same stuff. And Brian brings up a really important and honest point. Cal State East Bay has always been kind of plopped right in the middle of some of the most competitive and world renowned brands of education in the world. Stanford, Berkeley, to be the two that he brought up. And so Cal State East Bay just has to work that much harder to be out there and to answer our phones and to be available. And quite honestly, what I would say to someone, Brian, if you're in that particular position, a lot of Brian's on the call. That's why everyone just calls me Cook. The point is that I would say this, that, Berkeley and Stanford, they have the sort of the ability to say no, and to say in either to be too costly or too busy, based on the fact that their phones are always off the hook. And from that perspective, I would just say that we're pilot some programs and some customized training and research opportunities with Cal State East Bay, and you might be surprised with the results. So I think it's a two-way streak. I think that trust is earned, and that's something that we need to be prepared for.
May I add something? I think that as a faculty member teaching a course, I think there is incredible value added when there is someone from the industry who also comes into the classroom to teach a section of the course, because that's a real close relationship with students. And whereas career counselors and those kinds of job fairs and things, they're not as intimate. And you don't get a chance to acknowledge and kind of know in a short fashion that industry and the person standing in front of you who represents it.
Good info.
Just real quickly, if I may, Bob, I put in the chat one resource for employers in our area to get connected with our campus. And so I would encourage you all to give that website a look. Our team at Academic Advising and Career Education. There has been a bit of a transition of late, but we're really excited. We've got some new leadership there in place. So please do avail yourself of that opportunity. And certainly if either myself, Brian, or Kate can be at all helpful, please don't hesitate to reach out. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Satinder.
You're welcome.
Lindy, before we sign off, can you give us a quick report on the Equitable economic recovery?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My internet just went out there for a second, but the Equitable Economic Recovery Task Force is meeting next week. We have 6 groups that we've broken into and are exploring 6 different topics. And I won't dive into each one of them, but they are going to be available on the website that we have on the Contra Costa Economic Partnerships website dedicated just to this task force. One of those has to do with the healthcare workforce. One of them has to do with broadband. One of it's about exploring further funding. So we're going to be hopefully reporting out in the next few months some of the recommendations that come from the Equitable Economic Recovery Task Force. And I look forward to sharing those recommendations and thoughts here, as well as some focus groups that have been held to support the Equitable Economic Recovery Task Force and some of the recommendations that are coming from that focus group. So stay tuned, because I think I'll have a lot more like hard data and recommendations to share next month. But if any of you are interested or want some further details, feel free to send me an email. Happy to talk and more in depth.
Great, super. Well, thanks, Brian and Kate. You folks have been invaluable information to this group. We will be, remind us, Lindy, when the next meeting is.
So I think we actually have to set a date because November is tricky with, with the Thanksgiving holiday.
We could probably hold it on Thanksgiving and still.
Yeah, so it will be sent out in early November. We'll get notification to all of you, but we're gonna have to kind of play with the date, because if we were to hold it on our consistent date, it would be a little close to Thanksgiving, and we don't really want to hold it the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So.
Right. Well, the input today was invaluable, and I appreciate everybody showing up. I have almost 30 people with us today, so your engagement was greatly appreciated. If there is nothing else, we do have 3 minutes left. If anybody has any comments or questions?
I noticed Elaine had her hand raised. Perhaps we could.
Oh, I just, thanks everyone. This was just really great information. I really think it's very good for, those fresh out of college or changing their course while in college, as well as those that have lost their jobs and are really looking to refocus and pivot. This is just simple, easy to use, and I'm going to be putting it on our Plan B resources and sending it to my son as well. So thank you. It's really great information.
One final thought, Brian and Kate, is if this task force can be a resource to you in accessing input from business relative to skill sets like Brian Dean talked about today, Brian Turner talked about today, all the Brians talked about access to information on how to upskill or reskill workforce or participate in this sort of thing. So all of that's greatly appreciated, and we'd be happy to play a role in that. So whatever we can do to support. All right.
We'll be in touch. Thank you kindly.
Good. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.